Now that there is a break for international duty and the transfer window is finally over, I think it is a good time to go over Arsenal's window as a whole and talk about the positives and negatives of the whole thing. In this video, not only are we going to try and make sense of it all, we're going to understand the reasons why Arsenal did what they did, despite if most people disagree or agree with the decisions that were made. So let's get into it. Now, going into this transfer window, I definitely think I was probably one of the people that's most excited to see what Arsenal were going to do. I felt like there was a clear opportunity there to improve, especially our attack in midfield, considering last year we were so close to the league title and our midfield and attack wasn't exactly the best in the league in my opinion. And when the underlying stats say that we were the best defence in the league by quite a way on XG conceded and goals conceded as well, in attack we were clearly the third best team in the league when it came to expected goals, although we did score over that, which you expect elite teams to do, and were very good from things such as set pieces that obviously helped the way. However, we were still very much far behind Liverpool and slightly behind Man City, just a few goals, but Liverpool were way ahead. Obviously Arsenal have a better defence, but we knew that that was fine, and if they could just make sure that they made the right attacking signings or at least midfield signings to make the attack better, I felt like this could be the best opportunity to do it. However, as the transfer window has ended, Arsenal ended up making technically a net profit with all the clauses in different sales that we made, and not including Raya, only brought 3 new players into the squad, obviously being Calafiori, Merino and Raheem Sterling. Now, first of all, I am going to say I think Arsenal did address the issues that they had mostly. I don't think completely. I still think maybe a striker would have been better and maybe better players in different positions. But at the start of the season, I had this as our buy list, and you've got to say we have done most of this. We got the second goalkeeper because Ramsdale was sold in the end, and we brought in Neto on the last day, and we're going to bring in João Garcia and probably will go back for that in January or even the summer. We got a rotational left back in, maybe someone who's even better than rotational in Calafiori, for a decently priced deal from a player that was very much hyped in the world considering his performances last season for Bologna and his obviously great performances in the Euros. We necessarily didn't get that top level centre midfielder that I said in this video. I was looking for people like 100 million worths, people like Frenkie de Jong and Bruno Guimaraes, but we have got in Merino, who is a good player for now and does suit the tactics in that 8 role. We didn't get an alternative striker. I think we wanted Sesko, and obviously that got dismissed very early on in the transfer window. It's come out that he would have preferred a move to Arsenal, but he decided to stay, so I don't think we bothered to do any more business. And I wanted to back up winger in case Saka gets injured, someone that can play on both sides, which we got in the end by Raheem Sterling being available, which I think was a good signing in the end. Now, I think given the circumstances where a lot of people wanted us to kick on and this was phase 5 and people wanted Arsenal to buy more players, there's definitely a right to be disappointed with the signings that were made. We always hear this word market opportunity, and we know Arsenal do love getting these players such as Jorginho and Trossard before in January, but in a summer where you could really kick on and there is players out there available that will improve the team, sometimes you do have to go for signings that aren't necessarily market opportunities. Now, I know Arsenal do prefer being very sure on a signing they're going to make and having research by them for a lot of times. They're very specific about the players they bring in from an emotional level, from a mental issue, and from obviously ability wise what they're going to bring to the team. Now, there has been reports that after Sesko said no, we kind of put the striker thing to a bed this year and instead looked at wingers that we wanted to bring that were class level. We were looking at people like Mbeumo and Rafinha and even Onana early on as a centre midfielder into the transfer window. Now, reportedly these did not happen because they wanted to be guaranteed stars, which Arsenal aren't going to offer to any player. They want players to be willing to fight for their place in the squad and accept the fact that you're not going to play every game, which I do understand, and I think from a player perspective that is quite selfish to think you guaranteed deserve to be a starter at a team like Arsenal when we are fighting for league titles and trying to go far in the Champions League. I also respect the fact that our team won't sign divas such as Osimhen and Tony because they simply probably won't get along with the team and it's not the mentality that they want, and I'm someone that kind of understands that and think that there's no point of going for another Aubameyang situation again just if he's going to score a couple more goals than some of the players that we have. Now, the issue is that I think especially this summer it's clear that Arsenal don't really like taking risks. I think when we made them Pepe signings back in the day, I think it has put the club off making them type of signings again, and of course that one was a bad signing at the time, but I would say our signings have become very safe this summer. Players with very little risk where you're spending a decent amount of money but they're probably worth a lot more at the end of the day, and players that aren't necessarily going to improve the first team from an individual perspective and more of a tactical one, which I think is fair enough because I think this team's level is incredible, but but you could always get better. And for instance, I think Arsenal should have acted a lot earlier to get a winger in, and we almost didn't get Sterling in. It just seemed like a situation where we were kind of playing it out and weren't too concerned if Sterling joined or not, which in my eyes I really do not understand for once. I get a lot about what Arsenal do in the transfer window, but considering yet again we've gone on about how much Saka has played over the last few years, a backup winger seems to be low on the priority for someone like Saka wants. And I get it's hard to get a winger in that you're going to say to that you're going to come in when Saka's not injured or not fit, but you've also got to be able to play it on the other side, and I get that's not necessarily the easiest player to get for a cheap amount of money. However, we are Arsenal. There is definitely players out there. I made a whole video about 8 or 9 wingers that we could have signed, and some of them were on the cheaper side. And eventually you've got to take these risks, because I think Sterling will be good for now, but it is a very short-term, low-risk option. And if you want to really achieve things in the long term, you're going to have to take and help our team be a lot better in different ways. We needed a transitional threat. We're still not very good in transition. Everyone's playing a low block against us. We need that level in there. Sterling does bring that. He's not going to be the best person at it. He definitely brings that in from a pace standpoint, but that is clearly a problem of concern which we haven't addressed, and it seems kind of weird for the most of the summer. And I think last season our attack overall was a little bit disappointing, you can say. I think obviously the last 4 or 5 months it was very good, incredible. At the start it definitely was stop-start, and it feels like this season that the team have been struggling to try and click together with a lot of new things, a lot of new moving parts, but the only 2 attackers that are really consistent are Saka and Havertz right now. And I'm lucky that we have got Sterling in, but we could have had other options where they really could have pulled the plug on players and they just didn't bother, which I do think is very surprising for our team. But instead of complaining, let's try and find some of the reasons why our team did that. Now I think one of the main reasons is it took a long time to shift the players that they wanted. It was quite clear that Arsenal wanted to sell a lot of players this summer to make any sort of business, and in a sense we did have quite a lot of dead weight in the team, players only playing around 200 minutes who were just sitting on the bench. It took too long to get rid of Ramsdale, and I think in the end the money that we got for him was really good. Nelson obviously ended up going on loan. I think that was more because of Sterling coming in, but yet again that took too long to materialise. And even Eddie took quite a while, and Smith Rowe was relatively early, but he only played around 200 minutes, so it probably wasn't a cause of a concern to getting someone in straight away. I also think the problems with Thomas Partey not leaving, I think we definitely would have been wanting to sell him and he didn't leave, so we kind of had to keep him. I think the left back problem, we signed one and we didn't really get rid of any of them. Now Kivior definitely could have gone and we said no in the end, but that is because Tomiyasu yet again is injured, and I think that kind of ruined our plans a little bit in that sense. And I think sometimes things didn't materialise the way that we wanted, such as we got a bid for Trossard after the transfer deadline day had gone by a Saudi team for 35 million euros. I think honestly if that was earlier in the window when we could have still made silence, I think Arsenal may have accepted it. Not because Trossard's not good, because we all know how great he is, especially in the box, but I think that's another good opportunity they could have got to get money like they did with Granit Xhaka, who we can all agree is still a great player right now. The second reason they did this is definitely because of PSR. Now we're not going to be a team that's going to be doing these PSR deals, which is good. I wouldn't want to do that anyway. And because PSR is a lot stricter now and teams are struggling to spend money and make it back, I think we needed this summer where we relatively went even, so obviously in the future we can push on and sign even more players. And I feel like that coincides with the fact that there was no one really we were that sure on buying this summer. There's players that obviously we got in the end who I still think are good, but they're not them world-class elite players just yet, or will never be that. I think in many situations Arsenal couldn't get their number one target, so decided not to bother and decided to wait, such as probably Isak for Newcastle or Bruno Guimaraes in midfield, but even Nico Williams as a winger was someone that we really wanted and it didn't seem very possible. Now I think given it another year and given the amount of money that Arsenal spent this year being basically even, I think Arsenal must be going in for some top signings next year. Nonetheless, we have left number 10 and number 14 for no players to have, which to me seems like they're saving them for them big players in the future. Obviously this is the hope. Obviously hopefully we're going for someone in January as well, because I think we could still get some good deals done. But I think now we've given it a year and now we haven't signed these players such as Nico Williams this summer, I think next summer it's a relatively good idea to look at other wingers as well, because the market I think will be a lot more open with a lot more players being willing to move next summer. Now I think overall it is fine for us to take this summer to be much more patient, to wait for next year if that is when the best opportunities come. But in situations where we need players that are good on transition and we need another winger to help Saka, I think we should have acted a lot quicker and still got someone in for cheap. Now in the end you could say we got lucky or we were very smart, and I think it's probably both of them when we got Sterling in, because I personally think he's a lot better player than Reiss Nelson, and Reiss Nelson only played 200 minutes last season anyway. I also do feel like we have left ourselves a little bit light in some situations. Obviously we got rid of Vieira, we got Nelson, Smith Rowe, and Nketiah. And for attacking midfield players and forwards, that is like 1,400 minutes there where we need people to come in and play. Now we've got Nwaneri, who I expect to be a great player this summer, and I wanted him to get more minutes, so some of them players I completely accept it. But you also need players to step up. We complained last year that some of our top players were playing too much, and they were. And where is that backup going to come in from? Now in defence, you can definitely see it with the players we've signed, and Timber being fit now, and Ben White and everyone. But in midfield, I don't see us having much depth other than outside Jorginho and a 17-year-old. And then we're going to have to move people like Havertz back then, who is our backup strikers. If Jesus is injured, we're going to have to put one of the wingers there, and even then we don't have that much cover. I think we're good enough to get to January being in a relatively good space, but we've obviously got a lot of hard games coming up, and they're coming up quick. But like I've said to a lot of you, I think that Arteta and Edu have deserved our trust, and although this summer may seem a bit more confusing than some of the other ones, I'm going to trust them for now on because I've no reason not to. Stuff like the Marino getting injured is not their fault, and you've got to factor these things in as well, of course. But ultimately, if Sterling can provide to the level I think he can for us, then I'm not going to complain with the cheap deal we got him for, especially with Chelsea spending most money on him. But overall, I think it's fair to be a bit questionable about what we did in this summer. Not necessarily criticise it, but just be a bit wary of what we're actually trying to do. But I've tried to find the reasons out, and hopefully it's made it a little bit easier for you guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this transfer window. I feel like a lot of you are going to be disappointed, which, yeah, again, I think is valid. But let me know anyway. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.